Hello, all you ghosts and goblins out there. I'm Ashton,
I'm Andrew.
And I'm Sean.
and we are the Night Scholars, exploring the mystifying world of cryptids, ghosts, ghouls, and all things supernatural. Today, we will be talking about everyone's favorite three-headed goddess, Hecate. So, I don't know about you guys, but I had a lot of fun researching everything except for Hecate today.
I mean, everything except her. Yeah.
That sounds about right. Right? That you would do everything except your job.
Did you read all of Rick Riordan's books?
I didn't, but I did learn some Hebrew today.
Hebrew.
I mean, okay, you're gonna have to elaborate on that one.
This is a Greek goddess.
Hey,
Oh, it is. She most certainly is, and I will get to that.
I mean,
But I was curious, how far back were you able to date her?
I'm gonna be honest.
uh,
Third dates don't use BC, so I'm not really sure.
I think 5th century BCE, maybe a little bit newer than that, but it was complicated where she showed up.
Yeah, I was able to get to, or I heard somebody say second century, but I'm not totally
Hmm.
sure. I'm assuming they meant BCE, but she is associated with the Thessalonian witches
Hmm.
um
I saw that.
because of her ability to draw down the moon, and that was what they were known for doing.
Because like I've seen her in like the 4th century. That's as far back as I can find.
Now, as for your question, and did I read all the Rick Riordan books? No. Do I have them all next to me on a shelf? Absolutely.
All of them.
I don't have two of the Kane Chronicles, and I don't have the latest Percy Jackson book, but everything before that.
That's fair. I don't think I read the last two books. I think I only read like the first two, maybe three. Ken Chronicles. I mean, I read the
Well,
entirety of the Percy Jackson series. I didn't
there's
finish
only three.
Heroes of Olympus, which was the continuation of the series.
Well, that's where Hecate shows up, is in Heroes of Olympus.
I know she was mentioned. I didn't read
More
that far.
more than a little mention, she had a whole ass scene terrorizing a demigod.
Oh yeah, I can see it.
I think the
Yeah,
next
that's
book
so
is even about her.
interesting to me.
What the Sean can read?
It's interesting to me how she's like depicted as kind of like being angry in a couple of different depictions, because she's also depicted as being angry in Macbeth.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that was her. That's right.
Yeah, I didn't realize this because I've read the play and I've watched the play multiple times over, and I guess a lot of theater production companies don't necessarily mention Hecate because it takes away from basically any blame that Macbeth could have because of the witch's interference. And some people also don't think that Shakespeare wrote that part, that somebody came around and wrote it later.
That is a possibility.
Give it more to give it more credence to the witches. I can see that. Just say, hey, they weren't
That
just.
and yeah,
I mean,
that and just Hecate was fascinating, the witches were fascinating, so they just wanted to add in more lore while they could to kind of like ramp up that part, kind of missing the entire point.
now here's the thing. I it were you able to find any evidence of her sacrifices?
Before we get
It's,
into that, why don't we talk about who she is to begin with?
that's probably a good idea.
So, we were
Yeah.
discussing this before the episode started that she has a very complicated family tree, not just based off of who she may or may not have as a mother and father, but also because there are just so many different possibilities. But the one that seems to come up the most often is that she is the daughter of Perses and Assyria, which would make her both a titan and a nymph.
Yeah.
And she is the goddess of liminal spaces, crossholds, thresholds, cemeteries, spirits, life, death, transitions, herbalism, magic, the moon, and witchcraft. And I guess, Andrew, do you want to go into what makes that so fascinating that she is a Titan?
So yeah. So with her being a Titan, what's interesting in the mythology of it is pretty much all the Titans, including Cronus, right, are in Tarsus after um the Titan War, I guess is what you would call it. Where the Greek gods banded together and trapped the Titans down in Tarsus in the underworld in Hades.
Mm-hmm.
However, though, Hecate sided with Zeus and the gods instead of her fellow Titans. She is technically, I guess, not a Greek goddess, but a Titan. But she can still be called Greek goddess
A
because they
Titan
were often
god,
called
or
Titan
Titanite, as you
gods.
will.
Yeah.
That she was closer to a goddess than she was a titan, from everything I could find, but still technically a titan.
She does also seem to be from the last iteration of the Titans.
Yeah,
If what I was reading is correct. Well, let me rephrase that. If I read it correctly.
that's
That
a
is fair.
bit of a bold ask from the guy from Appalachia.
Yeah.
Ooch. I don't know what that was. I think I was supposed to say ouch and then or oof, and it came out as ooch.
Sir, I'll take being here from being from Texas any day.
Well, I'm not originally from Texas. I just happen to live in Texas.
Uh,
I don't know. I'm from Florida. I don't know if that's better or worse.
uh, probably worse. You Florida
It's
man?
much worse.
She knows. She visited me in Florida a couple times.
Did you ever
Worst
rob a
days of her
gas
life.
station using an alligator?
That was the second visit.
Is it a rite of passage?
Yes.
Yeah.
Although it wasn't a
Except the
gas
whole
station
thing is
so
that
much
you
as
have
a
to be
Wendy's.
blacked out while you're doing it, so I don't remember this at all.
uh,
It wasn't a gas station. It was a Wendy's, though.
through the drive-through.
Yep. Where do you
That's
think they got the idea?
that's where you got to do it. He didn't even ask for money. He was just like, "Hey, give me all of your Dave's doubles right now."
Damn right. You really don't remember this?
I really don't, which I think is fun because that's part of the experience. I'm sure there's still a video out there somewhere.
Oh yeah.
Probably. Who knows? Good times.
So with Hecate as the guardian of the crossroads, the three different heads represent three different phases of birth, life, or death.
Mm-hmm.
Birth is the it's can be literal or it could be metaphorical where you are starting something, a project for the first time. Life is that you want to nurture something that's already developed, and death is that you want to say goodbye to it forever.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I know personally for me that experience was a death moment, but I was curious what that was for Sean.
What, the death moment?
The whole experience that I can't remember that you remember in great detail.
Uh, I would definitely say it's a life moment because I don't know about you, but throwing an alligator through the drive-thru of a Wendy's is definitely full of life.
And death.
Maybe not for the other. Yeah, I was gonna say death for the other people. Maybe. Probably the death of their career at Wendy's. Be like, I've had enough. It's not worth it.
Indeed. But yeah, so I do find it interesting just the depiction that I was hearing about how the three different faces like so there's a lot of association with Hecate and the devil. I haven't really necessarily thought of her in that way, but as the goddess of the crossroads, there's a lot of crossover with, meeting the devil at the crossroads and people thinking that she represents that. Whereas this is really kind of supposed to be more of a shaman belief that there is really no right answer for where you were supposed to go whenever you hit this like liminal space at this crossroad of your life, and that whatever decision that you make, whether you want to continue working on something, whether you want to start anew, or whether you want to end that chapter, you are always going to end up wherever you end up, and that there is no sense of good or bad. It just is.
Yeah.
Life is life, and you can't change it.
Basically. And her role in that is really just to kind of guide you through that and just kind of be like a reassurance for the people who believe in that, which kind of goes in with the tale of her and Demeter. Did either of you get that story?
I
I've heard the
did.
story before. Or she helped. She gave Demeter the torches to search for her daughter. That's one I heard.
Indeed. Feel sorry for Sean.
Yay!
Yeah,
Which,
when Hades took Persephone.
yes, Persephone being the daughter.
Yes.
And I thought that was kind of an interesting representation of how she is like seen as like the goddess of death and the while Persephone is still very much real in Greek mythology because it's not necessarily about her having dominion over um the underworld. It's more about her kind of like just being the light for the souls. Because I think I saw something where they don't even necessarily like where they go is where every single person goes.
Yeah.
It, yeah, I was like, okay, well, that kind of makes sense because she's also like, if somebody decided to end a process of what they were working on, that she was just kind of like there to guide them.
Yeah.
And I also saw that apparently, speaking of the underworld, that she does occasionally borrow Cerberus from Hades.
Yeah. I saw that depicted in
She
some
actually has a
art.
yeah. Like she apparently has a bunch of different pets. Like there's a couple of really fun ones. Did you guys see any of those?
I did. There
Mm.
was four of them, I believe, or five. Three. Which
Did you
is
read any
huh?
did you read any of them about like the ones that were humans first?
You have
No.
the dog. The
Yeah.
polecat.
What about the dog?
Oh, so the dog was the Trojan Queen Hecuba or Hecate, depending on the translation. Um, who leapt into the sea after the fall of Troy and was transformed by Hecate into the dog, to the black she dog.
And like everything that I've read makes it sound like that was a perfectly fine thing and that who wouldn't want to serve their patron in that way? I don't really know if Queen Hecate actually knew about Hecate or not, um but that just kind of seems miserable.
I wouldn't mind being reincarnated as like an old hound, just sleeping on the front porch.
I mean, there are worse fates. I mean, turned into dog. I mean, Zeus turned people into plants a lot. So
That's fair. The other animal that I have as a pet was transformed by the enraged goddess. I am going to mispronounce this. Iolithia, I think is how you pronounce it. And she was transformed because of her incontinence. And that was when Hecate just kind of like or she was transformed into a polecat, and that was when Hecate just kind of stepped in and was like, you know what, I'll just adopt this one too. I already have the Trojan Queen, so I might as well just take another human, turn into a pet.
Mhm.
Okay, that's funny. Because that polecat shows up in Rick Riordan, and I wasn't sure where he found the origin of that myth, but that's funny.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah. She's
definitely
Um,
also
interesting.
Yeah, she's also known for having dogs or horses and snakes, but I've not really seen anything where any of them used to be human first.
What kind of snakes do you think she had?
well, they probably weren't on a plane.
No, I mean, I guess they'd be
I mean,
on the mortal plane, or they'd be on the astral plane or celestial.
I mean that's
Yeah, so
because at
take
this
that, Sean.
I love wordplay.
because
Sorry.
at this point that Ash regretted all of her life decisions.
Yeah.
This joke and not any of the other terrible ones.
That one wasn't bad, actually. I just am impressed that Andrew had to come back immediately for you.
Right?
But yeah, I don't know what type of snake, but she is also known for having snake energy and like I guess followers of her like will metaphorically like shed their skin, or maybe they believe that they are actually like shedding their old skin and like transforming through her help.
Yeah. So I'll say, don't try to physically shed your skin. Don't do that in real life. Put the potato peeler down. That is for potatoes, not humans.
Fine. I guess there goes my plans for the evening.
But
Oh, that's probably for the best.
yeah, that's pretty
Yes.
interesting
According
though. Like
to
a good snake goddess story. It's always real interesting stuff. Even
indeed. And
even some of it going back into like Christian theology and stuff too. Snakes have a lot of meaning, like Moses when he summoned the snakes from his staff. Or is that his brother?
yeah. And
Yeah, I think it might have been Aaron who did it, or Aaron who might have started it, and Moses' staff, because Aaron did most of the talking.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
so I learned today through my research, which is part of where I was going all over the place, is that so in Genesis, there is reference to the snake that I have been taught my entire life was the representation of Satan tempting Adam and Eve, and that was kind of I'm not a literalist when it comes to the Bible at all, but
Right.
the story was, just to depict like the fall of humanity and like why like man is like fallible.
Yeah.
But what I learned today was that the snake, which I was always kind of curious, like why the snake, because obviously like now that we're so many like centuries removed from it, I'm just like, okay, like obviously snakes are bad now, but that association was there. But what I didn't realize was that so many other cultures and deities use snakes, and that was why they like specifically chose the snake in that story.
That
Mm-hmm.
makes a lot of
Was
sense.
Yeah, because it's just like the entire point of that story is to show how the Christian God is different than all of the other gods. And
Yeah.
so this is
Yep.
basically saying like every single other like god is working with the fallibility of humans.
Yeah. Because it is depicted as being Lucifer being controlled by Lucifer.
Well, it
Yeah,
depends on if.
except it's not
Well,
even. Like it's not even supposed to be like Satan. It's just supposed to be like opposition to man.
but
Because
it's
like people
also
will try to say that the character at the end of Revelation or during Revelation is um that one thing that kind of points to the snake in Genesis and being Satan, but it's more of like a dragon, and I guess like I was reading some stuff today where that's actually probably more of a depiction of Leviathan because that's more of how Leviathan is depicted.
Mm. And
Yeah,
there's
I mean,
the
there's
beast and all that too. Revelation is a really interesting read. I remember reading it back in high
well,
school. It was
here's the other thing. It also doesn't. It also makes it more interesting because there's some old writings that imply that Satan and Lucifer are two different beings.
Yeah, so the word Satan is actually from I learned this today too. This is where I went all over
Opposer,
the
right?
place.
Or accuser.
So it is adversary.
hmm
Like it's from the
Adversary.
Hebrew word Satan. And I couldn't quite find there was somebody who claimed that Christian God himself was referred to as um Satan at some point, which I really couldn't find any of that, but I did find while I was going on this very wild like chase that the word um that ties back into Hecate is this whole idea of the what hell actually is because again, being very very far removed from this always hear like the you will like die in the pits of hell and like burn forever, but it very much has a pretty strong implication that this idea of the underworld, which Hecate is supposed to kind of like help oversee, um, in Greek mythology, it's really just a place where all souls go. And it's also kind of that idea is seen in scripture too if you look at the Hebrew because there's like so much reference of like Sheol. I don't know how I'm pronouncing that, but
Sheol, I think.
yeah, but it's like all over like the like Genesis and like the Pentateuch. It's all over the Pentateuch. It's all over the Tanakh about all of these different people like saying that they are going to go and be in Sheol.
Yeah.
And I thought that was kind of interesting because basically it just seemed like a place where the souls went. And I thought it was cool that the Greek mythology and the Christian mythology kind of worked with the same exact thought there.
Yeah.
That,
Yeah, because
that is pretty
even
fascinating.
in Hades, the underworld and Greek mythology, uh, Tarsus is the place where the punishments are. Like that's where old what's his name? Like well, where the Titans are as well as where Sisyphus is, right? The one that's constantly having to push the boulder uphill.
Hmm.
Antilus.
But
Yes, it's another.
yeah, which is interesting because yeah, there's different segments of the underworld. Most people go to I don't remember what it's called at this point. Because I was actually watching a video about Hades and Persephone and Demeter the other day, and I forgotten
I think
what it's
I think
called.
Asphodel.
But
I think I think Asphodel
yeah,
or
most
something like that
people
is what it's
don't
called.
who go to the underworld there don't actually go into you know punishment.
Very few. It's got to be pretty bad.
Only people who like upset the gods end up there.
And then you see like other depictions of Hecate, like the negative tales of her like releasing all of these demons and terrible phantoms into the world. And it's like I think you're kind of like missing the point.
hmm.
Mhm.
Like the demons and terrible phantoms are probably in like the other space.
Could be.
Either way, there are still several places of worship for her, and I know that there are people who do actively believe in her and see her as a goddess. So I'm really hoping that we are being sensitive while talking about all of this.
Yeah, it's always struggling to bring up
Yeah.
any type
Because
of
I know the
theology.
major places of worship, like at least back in the day, were Samothrace, Aegina, Argos, and a bunch in Athens.
Mm-hmm.
And Athens is where you could find like a lot of statues.
Yeah.
Um, they would sacrifice dogs, honey, and
Ooh.
black female lambs,
Yeah.
which
I did,
the dogs thing kind of makes me sad. Like, I mean, I
Yeah. Me
think it's
too.
probably the same concept of
I
like
did.
sacrificing a lamb, but
Oh, yeah.
I don't know.
it seems more
I
personal.
I don't know if you found this one, Ash, but I did find evidence of a sacrifice ice to Hecate at a temple of Apollo.
Hmm.
I did not. Do you have more details?
No, I don't have that one open anymore, but I thought you would find that. I think it has something to do with, as you mentioned, that she was associated with the witches of the moon. Moon and Apollo, I believe, was the god of the moon for a while. Oh, that was his sister. But it's just an interesting place to find a sacrifice. It's in the temple of another god.
That is. But she must have really made quite an impression with her siding with the new gods over the Titans, though. Because I know, like, even Zeus found her very favorable.
Oh, yes. Very much so.
Well, you always want to keep the witches on your side. I wasn't able to get a straight answer on this one, but did you find anything about her children, Ash? Maybe her
It's debated whether or
Yeah,
not she has
so
any.
yeah, so there's
some of
not a
them.
straight answer on that because, like, she is both known as being a virginal goddess, and she's also either the patron of or the mother of Medea and Circe,
Hmm.
Yeah, some of them
or who
have
I
them
have
as
for
her
her
nieces,
kids.
but some of them have her as her daughters, and that she was married to the king of Colchis, yes, and had Circe. But other times that she was just allies with them. I don't know. It's the children of the gods get complicated.
They do that, and so many of these stories were verbally passed on, lost tales, and then when you get the Christians coming in and trying to wipe out any mentions of any other gods and instilling fear, you just get so many new versions of stories that already existed. Like the word hell, for instance, like is probably borrowed from the Germanic goddess Hel.
Hey, all you ghosts and goblins. It's me, Andrew. You know, one of the hosts. Yeah, that Andrew. I'm that guy. Anyway, I just wanted to stop and tell you guys about our shop. We have exclusive shirts and stickers featuring the Jersey Devil sharing donuts with the Squonk. Because, I mean, come on. Sweets cheer everyone up, right? And you can find them at the Night Scholars Podcast.myshopify.com. The link is in the description below. Thank you guys for listening, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the episode.
I'm really quite impressed at the stuff you were able to pull out on this one, Ash. You found some good discussion.
Yeah, I think I spent like 60 minutes like finally like being very excited about my rationalization of a lot of things in the Bible that didn't make sense to me growing up.
Hmm.
And then I was just
But
like, wait, I don't have enough notes on Hecate right now, so maybe I should probably actually research her.
that is pretty fun. It went down the rabbit hole and then somehow pulled yourself out of it.
Also, what's fun about the Bible's in Genesis, the snake had legs at first.
It sure did.
It was just a lizard.
It it sure did.
Well, the fun thing is that it doesn't actually talk about how it leaves. So for all we know, it could also have wings and could have flown off.
Hmm.
Well, it said you will crawl on your belly for the rest of eternity.
Yep.
Yes, but when it initially left before it was cursed,
Well,
this was
didn't.
like a huge discussion in
Hmm.
my one of my Bible classes.
Didn't they like
Okay, that's
step
fair.
on it? I mean, didn't like its head get crushed or something? I don't remember. It's been a long time since I've
Uh,
read any scripture.
you will strike his heel and he will crush your head. Is what the scripture says.
Yeah.
Indeed. Or you might be
Oh,
thinking about
it's
the Noah movie where it does start off with his head being crushed.
I never saw the
okay.
movie.
Okay, I have a great way of summing up that movie for you, Andrew.
Yeah.
Uh, Babylonian Chainsaw Massacre.
Oh, okay.
That movie is a travesty. It's just nothing
Nice.
but Russell Crowe chewing the scenery.
Yeah.
But Emma Watson's in it, right?
Yes, she
I
she
don't
exists in it.
know.
She exists in it. She definitely phoned it in.
Okay, that's fair. That was my one selling point of ever watching it, but that was a pretty good
No,
summary. I might watch it now anyways.
there's fallen angels. Oh, it's the bad guy. It's on the boat. Oh, it starts eating the animals.
Oh yeah, my dad, who typically would absolutely hate that type of movie, he was like, as soon as I decided that this was a pure fiction movie and that they weren't even trying to go with the Bible, I thought it was really fun. I was like, all right.
uh, Noah and his family were vegetarians.
I mean, that makes sense. I mean, how they would be tempted to eat the animals before they procreated.
No, vegetarian to the point where he saw somebody murder somebody else. He's like, sure, whatever. But as soon as they killed the dog, he beat them to death. Which again,
Hey, that's how
understandable.
I would be. Yeah, very understandable. Or, I mean, considering like how far this like um left the source material, like I bet Hecate herself probably was just like a second away from coming in and killing him if she wouldn't have stepped in, or if he wouldn't have stepped in, because nobody has that many dogs as pets and lets that happen.
No.
I mean, if it was good enough for John Wick, it should be good enough for the rest of us.
Indeed. How many movies are they on for that now? Like 4 or 5?
Uh,
Something like
there's 4 main John Wick movies, and then a spinoff with Ana de Armas is coming sometime next year.
that. Anyway, we got anything else to say about Hecate?
Um, One thing that I found that I thought was interesting that doesn't really go along with any other narrative that I saw is that she was possibly a consort of Farai and Ulysses, since they were initially like in charge of some of the things that she eventually is known for.
Yeah. Like I've also I was looking at my notes here and I did see her uh relation like to Apollo. Uh
What is that relation?
I have to find it again.
Because I have that she's possibly siblings with Apollon, but I don't know if that's Apollo.
I think it is also
Um,
Apollo.
I saw that one variation of her name was Hecate, which was a very old name for Apollo, so she could have split off from him, but that wasn't. But the source I found that in said this source was very unreliable. So
That's fair. In that sibling grouping, that would also make her the sister of Artemis.
Yeah.
yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah. And that her name means worker from afar. And that's about all I have. That is not me going on a rant for several pages about all of the fun Hebrew words and the misappropriation of so much stuff for fear mongering done by early Christians, as we have seen multiple times over with a lot of these tales that have more uh, pagan and other like Greek and whatever uh, pathos, like other gods and pagan beliefs
Hmm.
are very much stamped out by and reworked, which was probably very, very easy to do back then because it's very easy to do today, and we have the internet and it's still very easy to do. I don't know. I
Huh.
definitely am very spiritual and found all of the relations kind of interesting throughout this. As far as my belief in Hecate, I think that they are, if anything, gods of old and no longer relevant. But what about you guys?
I believe that the gods were actual people whose stories became larger than life. If and over the years they became gods in these stories. So I believe that they were just people. That they're fascinating people, but that's all, at the end they were just people.
Which I love mythology, especially Greek mythology.
Oh yeah.
I don't really believe any of them are actually real beings, at least not as of today.
Basically similar to me. They did exist, but no longer.
Pretty much. Like, it's real interesting stuff to think about and to see how mythology, is used to explain how the world works. Like how Demeter, the story of Persephone, Demeter, and Hades explains the wintertime.
Yep.
Yeah. Like
The
for
seasons.
me, I just think that people grow up believing what they believe or come to uh find things that help them along the way. So this is in absolutely no means dismissing those who believe in Hecate at all, and this was a fun episode.
This
Yeah,
was
it's just
a
very
really fun
interesting.
episode.
Kind of want to look more into her
Uh,
relation with the other gods, and to figure out if Apollon
and
is also Apollo, because that's what I was assuming. I could be wrong.
I'm I'm assuming contentions. The gods didn't like each other any more than they liked the mortals.
Thank you again, our ghosts and goblins, for listening to the Night Stories. You all be good to each other. Don't answer the scratching at your window.
Or do.
But most importantly, stay safe out there.
Good night.